Hi everybody, this is Madonna from Mad Bees, and today is the first day of our demos during Octo-bee-fest. And so what I've decided to do was to kind of run a small class or a class type of demos. So I'm not really showing tools as much as I am showing how to cut, how to press, how to do some of the things. So I hope that you follow along because I want you to test your own skills while we're doing this. And by that I mean I want you to see how your skills are adding up. I know that as I've done better, I keep doing better. And the more I practice, the better I'm going to get at these things. So one of the things that we do here at Mad Bees is we do a beginning quilting class. And we've been asked more than once why we do the quilt that we do versus some of the other quilts that are out there. And we do a rail fence quilt. And the reason we do that is it is actually one of the hardest skills. Because when you're beginning, to be able to get 2.5-inch strips that are 6.5 inches long to all add up to be the same both directions is not that easy. And so if we can master that, then we can move on and master other things. So I am using Alex as a reference tool, but more so just as a learning tool for all of us. So I'm going to start at the very beginning of when I purchase fabric. So anytime I can purchase fabric, I will buy yard goods, and then I try to cut them down into fat quarters. For myself, it is much easier for me to work with smaller pieces. And many times I don't start a project because I look at those 3 yards of fabric and it's just way too overwhelming for me. So I try to cut into fat quarters where possible. So I always read through my directions, and I say that read through. I look through my directions, okay? I try to see where they're cutting and, you know, if I need to save for a specific quilt, but I try to go in an organized method. So today I've just brought 2 fat quarters with me to be able to demo. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up these fat quarters and I'm going to give them a good shake out. And just make sure that they're there. We can see we've got several wrinkles in here, which is okay. And I'm going to go ahead and use my best press on them. So for those of you who don't know what best press is a spray starch alternative, which means that it is moisture. It is going to give some firmness to the fabric, but it's not going to attract moths or other bugs. It's not a potato-based starch. So it is a new, or it's not even new anymore. It's a product that's been out there for a while. You can use it in 1 coating or 2 coatings, or to decide how much you want on your fabric. Now today I have it in the regular spray bottle that comes with Best Press. At Mad Bees, we do sell the aerosol type bottles, and those work great for this. And it does make it go a little bit further, and it also helps for it to absorb into your fabric better. So Best Press is what I'm going to spray on here. I spray pretty heavy. I like my fabric to be more like paper. So I'm going to give it a good spray. And then once I've sprayed it pretty well, I'm going to use my favorite tool. I'm going to use my hand, and I'm just going to make sure that all of this has gone into the fabric. So I'm using my hand to just give it its first press. And once I've done this, I can actually see that a lot of those creases have already come out. But now I just want the stability of the iron to hold it in place. If I see that there's a lot of wrinkles still up in one corner, maybe I didn't get a nice enough mist up there. So just put a little dab more on there and go for it. Now, does it matter the front side or the back side of my fabric? No. Does it matter if I do all of my fabric at one time and then come back and press them? No. Can I leave this out and sit overnight to dry? Absolutely. It will still get a nice firmness to it. I'm just going to take my iron and I'm going to give it a little bit of a press. I am going to walk my iron across without stretching it. As you can see, as I'm moving across, I'm not pulling on my fabric. I'm just keeping it where it's at. The other thing I notice many times in classes is that people are using their iron so very hot. The whole idea is to dry the best press in, but not scorch our fabric. I got a little wet spot right there. Get that out of there. And even right now, we can see the body that it's given the fabric. It really gives it some nice weight to it, a little bit more stiffness to it. And then I'm going to finish up on the other side. No stretching, no pulling. It's not moving all over the place. And I've got a nice firm piece of fabric to work with. I'm going to set that one aside, and I'm going to do my blue one. Same exact treatment. Oh, this one's got nice wrinkles in it. We'll be able to get most of that out with just our spray. Now, if we were one of those fancy shows, we'd have time-lapse photography that we could go right past all these little menial tasks. And look at how nice that's coming out already for us. This is the reason I don't care for this spray bottle, is see how it's given quite a bit of moisture in one spot and not in the other. The aerosol type container is much nicer. And at home I have one of those. I'm putting a pretty firm coat on this one because I want you to see how it looks. Okay, so right here next to me, I put a wool pressing mat. I love the wool. I love the wool, especially when I'm first doing my projects, when I've cut and I've already best pressed. I try not to use best press on this. It will actually adhere to it, and it's going to yellow your mat, and it's going to flatten out some of the fibers on it. You want the fibers on here to be able to grab your fabric so that it's not shifting. So about once every 6 months, once a year, you know, the more you use it, the more often you should do it. Take it to the kitchen sink and rinse it. Rinse it, rinse it, rinse it, rinse it. No soap, no water, no soap, no detergent, anything like that. Just rinse it. Stand it up in the drainer and let it dry. It's going to take a good day to dry. You could put it outside if you want to, but just let it stand up so all the water just pours right out of it. Don't lay it flat that it's going to sit in it. It is awesome. It'll reactivate those fibers for you so you won't get any stretching or shifting. Once it's sprayed with Best Press, I can put it on there, but I just don't want the wet spray to get on there and absorb into it. So I'm going to use my iron now to just go across this without stretching it out of place. You can see, I'm going over it, but I'm not moving it. I'm barely touching this with my iron. It is just staying right exactly where it lives. It's not taking a walk anywhere. The slower I go, the more of it I'm going to dry, but I'm not stretching it. It's not growing by inch and inch and inch. Okay, so I've pressed my fabric. I've got a nice piece here, all taken care of. Looks gorgeous. So now I'm going to move on to cutting. So Deanna and I are going to move over to the cutting table so I can show you a few things there. Can we come right around the front here, Deanna? And I will stand right here. Hope we didn't make anybody dizzy there. Perfect. Hi everybody. So here I am at the cutting table, and what I'm going to talk about now is how to actually cut your fabric. Okay, so we've all seen and we think we know and we do. And remember, this is not set in stone. This is my opinion, not a Bible verse, okay? It is definitely something that is a variable. I'm going to break 1 second because I need to turn the fans off behind me. Otherwise, you'll all be getting dizzy. They'll slow down in just a second here. Okay, so we're going to start off with tools, okay? I've got a cutting mat here that is actually a two-sided cutting mat. So on one side, it is gray. On the other side, it is green. And I will tell you, I really like that because when I'm doing dark fabrics, I can be on this side. But when I'm doing light fabrics, I can be on this side. It's truly giving me two cutting mats. Next is my rulers. So I have chosen to work with Quilter Select rulers. We've purchased those in the store. They do have a film on them that makes them stick to the fabric so they don't shift and they don't slide on you. So that is a pro and that's a con. The pro is that you're going to get better cutting because it's going to stay put. The con is when you're trying to line up to like that 7/8 of an inch, it's sometimes hard to just move it over that little bitty bit. I typically just pick up the back end of my ruler and move it the little bit that I need, and then that way I'm not having to reposition everything. So the first thing I'm going to show you is I've got my fat quarter here, and it has a selvage on it. The selvage is considered true. It is the exact straight line that we're looking for. So I'm going to line that straight line up with the straight line on the bottom of my mat. Can we see that, Deanna? Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. So I've lined it up with the straight line of my mat. If I look at this side right over here, I can already see how cattywampus it is. Here's my 1-inch mark, and here's my 1-inch mark on the other end, and they are definitely not even. Okay? So that's the first thing I want to do is take care of that. So I am going to lay my ruler down onto the edge that I want to clean up, and I am going to clean up that. This is one time where I'm going to use my ruler, use my mat as my guide, not my ruler. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. This is the time when I'm going to use my mat as my guide, not my ruler. All I'm doing is making a straight edge. So I've got my ruler in place. When I use my cutter, I am going to make sure that my hip is even with where I'm cutting, okay? So it's right here. And what that's going to do for me is give me a much more even line. My arm is consistently moving the same way. If I stand over here, it's moving across my body, and then I'm not getting as nice of a cut. This way, I'm going right next to the ruler, and I'm going to have a much cleaner cut with it. Move that ruler out of the way. I need to move onto the table just a hair more. Okay, so I've lined up the bottom and the top. I just barely pick up the bottom of my ruler to reposition. Make sure that everything has stayed nice and straight. And I'm going to clean up that edge. Set my cutter down and watch. Here I am. I'm going right along it. Notice how I'm just being able to keep my hand nice and straight. I'm not having to turn it or go across my body or anything like that. Close my ruler and my cutter, and now I'm ready to move on. I'll take this strip out of the way, and I can see I now have my first line that's really nice and clean. So then after that, I'm going to use my ruler as my guide. So I want you guys to test this at home. I want you to cut a 2.5-inch wide strip. So 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. Put my ruler on there, make sure it's all nice and neat and clean up there. It is 2.5, and I'm going to cut. And I'm going to move my hand, and I'm going to cut. And I'm going to do one more strip. So I've got a 2.5-inch wide strip, a 2.5-inch wide strip, and now I'm going to cut a 2.5-inch wide strip. See how nice my arm is? It didn't go wobbly, it didn't bend, I didn't have to reposition. I was just able to do a nice clean cut with standing with my hip even with the ruler. So now I've got two 2.5 inch wide strips for my white. I'm going to now go ahead and do the exact same thing to my teal colored fabric. I am going to line up the bottom of my fat quarter, the selvage being what I consider true. Now look at, this one's a little cattywampus over here. Okay, but that is what we typically consider true. See how it turns down? So my decision is this. I can work from this edge, or I can turn to this edge. And now I've got a beautiful, nice edge all the way to there. I will have to deal with this at some point in time, but I'm going to worry about this edge right now for our class. Smooth this out. I can see again that I'm not square. I'm going to clean up this edge to make sure it looks really nice. I'm going to set my ruler on the 1 this time. Get it all nice and even. Look at both edges. Hold on to my ruler, move my hip over, and cut. Get rid of that piece. Use my ruler 2.5 inch wide measurement, set it on the edge. Hand on, hip over, rotary cutter ready, and away we go. So now I have a beautiful rail fence here. The goal here is to sew these 3 pieces together, and you should wind up with a 6.5 inch block right now. When you do that, once you've sewn them together, you should be able to take this block and turn it left and turn it right and turn it left and turn it right and be able to have a rail fence type quilt. It is in the Alex Anderson book, and you should be able to turn those to 6.5 inches. If you're not sewing right, then you're going to have the wrong size block. So it's on page, keep going, Madonna, there we go. It's right here, this rail fence quilt. Okay, so by cutting 2.5 inch wide strips, adding them together, and then cutting a 6.5 inch square, they should match. There shouldn't be anything that you need to square up. If you're squaring up, most likely you've either cut incorrectly, or you've sewn incorrectly, or lastly, you've pressed incorrectly. So try not to stretch when you're pressing. The question that I get asked a lot is, should I open up my seams or should I press them to one side? Well, I really personally prefer to press to one side. It actually makes a stronger seam because you have both of the pieces of fabric moving together instead of when they're open, they have more pull traction against them. So I prefer that, especially if I'm doing a baby quilt or a major utility quilt. If I'm doing an art quilt, then I might be more likely to press them open just because I don't want as many seams together. So those are the things that I would look for. So your challenge this week is to try to make some 6.5 inch blocks using 3 pieces. Check your 1/4 inch, check and see how well you're pressing. I would really love it if you didn't have to square up anything. Squaring up only takes away fabric that you need. And most likely, if you're going to square up on this, you're going to be taking off the top and the bottom edges, which means that you're now going to be losing part of that block, which means that it's not going to match into the next one in how wide those strips are. Your center one's going to appear like it's bigger because you've taken off the top and the bottom edges. So it's your goal for the week. So that's the end for my Octo-bee-fest week 1. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about piecing and some stitches on your machine when you're piecing. So other than that, I need you to stop in the store. I need you to say hello on this video, or send us an email, Deanna? Sure, send us an email saying that you watched, and then that way you'll get your punch on your Octo-bee-fest card. Wrong word, okay?
Also, they can get the pieces of the quilt.
Oh, yes.
Tell them that.
We have a quilt that we've made special for this, and I will show it tomorrow. So I will be on again tomorrow, so don't miss me too much. But tomorrow I will have the quilt to show you that we have designed for Octo-bee-fest. And it's a 4-part pattern that we're releasing. You can grab the pattern piece today, but the quilt will be hanging in the store starting tomorrow. So everybody have a great afternoon. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we get a little smarter again next week. Until then, we'll see you. Bye now.